Some people in this family build success, my father said loudly, and some people just waste their lives. The backyard went quiet. About 60 relatives sat under the big oak trees behind my aunt's ranch house in Texas. Paper plates, lemonade, country music playing softly. Everyone heard him. Everyone knew he was talking about me. My father raised his glass. "Let's be honest," he continued. "My son Daniel here never became anything. No big career, no big house, just drifting." A few cousins laughed nervously. My sister looked down at her plate. My mother stared at the ground. And I said nothing. I just sat there with my hands folded, watching him. After a moment, my father smiled proudly and took a sip of his drink, like he had just spoken the truth, like the story about me was already decided. But what they didn't know was, in just a few hours, the entire family would learn something my father never noticed for 25 years. And suddenly, the word failure would sound very different. Family reunions used to be my father's favorite event. He loved being the center of attention. My father, Robert Walker, was the kind of man people respected in town. Successful construction business, large house outside Dallas, 2 trucks in the driveway. At every reunion, he told the same stories. How he built his company from nothing, how hard he worked, how discipline made a man strong. And every year, there was always a moment where he compared his children. My sister Emily was the success story. Doctor, nice home, 2 polite children. Then there was me, Daniel. No big title, no big house, just a quiet life he considered failure. I worked as a property manager for several small apartment buildings. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. Still, to my father, it meant something else. It meant I had disappointed him. For years he reminded everyone, sometimes joking, sometimes not. And the strange thing was, I never corrected him. I never argued. I just listened. Because there was something my father never understood. Silence does not always mean weakness. Sometimes silence is patience. And that day in Texas, patience was about to matter. After his speech, the conversation slowly returned. Kids ran across the yard. Someone turned the music louder. But something inside me had shifted. Not anger, not even embarrassment, just a quiet memory. I remembered something he once told me when I was 12. Someone in this family has to build something real. Standing in my father's office, he had stacks of paperwork across his desk, contracts, invoices, loan forms. I had asked him a simple question. "Dad, why do you work so much?" He didn't look up. Because someone in this family has to build something real. At the time, I thought he meant success, money, reputation. But years later, I realized something else. My father had always believed worth was measured by what people could see. Big house, big business, big reputation. Things that impressed a crowd. Things that made people clap. But life had taught me something different. Some of the most important work happens quietly, without applause, without attention, and sometimes without anyone noticing. Across the yard, I watched my father laughing with my uncles, telling another story about hard work. And I wondered something. Did he actually believe the story he told about me? Did he really think I had done nothing with my life? Or was there something he hoped no one would ever discover? Because the truth was, I had spent years protecting something my father never noticed. And today, that protection was about to end. The reunion continued through the afternoon. Barbecue smoke filled the air. Kids played baseball near the fence. My father moved from group to group telling stories, confident, relaxed, proud. I watched quietly because the moment I had been waiting for was coming. Around 5 o'clock, my cousin Mark walked over holding his phone. "Hey Daniel," he said, "you still manage those properties in Houston?" "Yes," I said. Mark smiled. "That's funny. I just saw something online about a company buying several complexes there." He showed me the screen. I looked at it for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Yeah," I said. "I know about that." Across the yard, my father glanced in our direction. For a moment, his expression changed, just slightly. Then he looked away again. That small reaction told me something important. He had seen the headline too, but he didn't realize something. He didn't realize something important about that article, something connected to me in a way no one at that table expected. Belonged to me.
For years, I had quietly purchased struggling apartment buildings, fixing them, improving them, one property at a time. Nothing flashy, nothing that attracted attention, but over 25 years, those properties had grown. Dozens of buildings, hundreds of families living in them. And today, a national investment group had made an offer, a very large one. I wasn't planning to announce it, not today, but after hearing my father's speech earlier, something inside me changed, because suddenly I wondered something. Was his confidence just arrogance, or was it fear? Dinner began just before sunset. Long tables were set across the yard. My father stood again to make another toast. Family is about legacy, he said proudly. What we build, what we pass down. Several relatives nodded. Then my cousin Mark spoke up. Hey Daniel, wasn't that company buying your properties mentioned in the news today? The table went quiet. My father frowned. What properties? He asked. Mark looked confused. You know, the Walker Housing Group deal? A few relatives pulled out their phones. Someone read the headline out loud. Regional Housing Company sells portfolio for $280 million. My father laughed. Nice name, he said. Walker Housing Group. Then he paused. Slowly, he looked at me. Daniel, he said carefully, that's not your company, is it? I set my glass down, and for the first time that day, I answered him directly, looked at him. Yes, it is. The table went completely silent. My father stared at me, waiting for the joke. But there was no joke. My aunt leaned forward. Daniel, are you serious? Yes. I pulled out my phone and opened the article. The headline was clear. Walker Housing Group announces $280 million portfolio sale. My cousin Mark read further. It says the company was founded 25 years ago by Daniel Walker. My father's face had gone pale. That's impossible, he said quietly. You've been managing apartments. I nodded. Yes, I was managing them. For myself. A murmur spread across the tables. My sister looked stunned. You never told anyone? She asked. No. Why? I looked across the table at my father. Because suddenly something was clear. He had always needed to believe a certain story. A story where he was the builder, the successful one, the strong one. And I was the disappointment, the quiet failure. So I let him believe it. For years. Not out of fear, but out of patience. I didn't say anything. I simply watched the room grow quiet. Some victories don't need words. And sometimes, the loudest critic simply hasn't been paying attention. My father looked around the table. Everyone was reading the article now. The same relatives who had laughed earlier were suddenly very quiet. Finally, my father spoke again. How long? He asked. 25 years, I said. The same number of years he had been telling everyone I had done nothing. There was a strange poetry in that moment. The man who had measured success by appearances had missed the most successful person sitting at his own table. The reunion ended differently that night. Conversations were softer, more thoughtful. My father didn't give another speech. He mostly sat quietly beside my mother. Before I left, he walked over to me. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then he said something I had never heard before. I didn't know, he said quietly. For the first time in my life, my father looked unsure of himself. I know, I replied. Earlier that afternoon, many of those same relatives had laughed. Now, most of them avoided my eyes. He nodded slowly. Some lessons arrive late in life, but they still matter. A few months later, the deal closed. I used part of the money to start a housing foundation, renovating affordable homes for families who needed them. The same quiet work I had been doing for years. Not flashy, not public, just quiet work. The kind that doesn't need applause. I still think about that afternoon at the reunion, the moment my father called me the family failure. Funny thing is, by that point I had already spent 25 years building something he never noticed. Life has taught me something simple. The loudest voice in the room is rarely the one doing the real work. And sometimes, the person everyone overlooks is quietly building a life no one expects. So I'm curious, if someone spent years underestimating you, would you prove them right away? Or would you wait and let the truth speak for itself? Tell me in the comments. And if stories about patience, justice, and quiet strength resonate with you, stay with Insight Over Revenge and subscribe for more stories like this.